Welcome to the 8th video in the series on communication titled Written Communication. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we are going to completely transform how you view your everyday emails, your quick text messages, and those formal reports you have to write. Now, this isn't just about grammar or rigid spelling rules. It's really about the fundamental way we connect with each other, how we organize our chaotic thoughts, and ultimately how we actually get things done in the modern world. So let's get right into it.
I want you to stop and think for a second about the incredible weight, the absolute permanence of the written word. It's kind of wild when you compare it to speaking. When we speak to one another, our words exist for this brief, fleeting moment in the air, and then they vanish entirely, right? But when we write, we are creating a permanent record. It is a highly deliberate act. Written messages have this almost magical ability to travel across time and immense geographical distances. Literally, you can read a deeply personal letter written 100 years ago, or you can instantly read an email sent from the other side of the planet just a fraction of a second ago. But as you can imagine, with that incredible lasting power comes a significant amount of responsibility.
To really ground our understanding today, let's look at how we actually define this entire process. Communication scholars basically view communication as a process of creating and sharing information to reach mutual understanding. And that phrase right there, mutual understanding, is absolutely key here. In written communication, a message is only effective when the reader actually understands your intended meaning. Think about it. If you spend an hour crafting an eloquently worded, beautifully formatted email, but the person reading it entirely misinterprets your core point, well, the communication has failed. The meaning just wasn't shared.
Okay, let's quickly check out today's roadmap. We are going to look at 1. The power of written words. 2. Features of effective writing. 3. 4 everyday formats. And 4. Overcoming barriers.
Starting with Section 1, the power of written words, and the actual mechanics of the process of sending and receiving.
So, written communication is definitely not instantaneous. It is a complex, multi-stage journey. First, the sender goes through planning, drafting, and revising the text. Then comes the sending phase, where a medium carries it. Maybe that's a physical piece of paper, or maybe it's digital technology transmitting a direct message. Next up is reading and interpreting by the receiver, and finally, responding. Now, what's really critical to realize here is that feedback isn't always a direct written reply. Feedback can be a casual comment later on. It can be a physical action taken based on your instructions. It can be a correction. Or, and this is a big one, it can even be silence. And trust me, in written communication, silence is a very, very loud form of feedback.
But of course, this journey is rarely perfectly smooth. There's a foundational concept from scholars Shannon and Weaver that shows how messages are often disturbed by what they call noise during transmission. Now, if we were having a spoken conversation, noise might literally be a loud siren passing by outside. But in written communication, noise is entirely different. It's unclear language, it's jarring spelling errors, or super messy formatting that pulls the reader right out of your sentence. It's a lack of context, or even a cultural misunderstanding that completely derails the reader's interpretation of your words.
So how do we actually cut through all that interference? Let's shift gears to Section 2, Features of Effective Writing, or what I like to call the anatomy of a good message. Here is the absolute essential checklist you should mentally run through before you hit send on any document. We call it the rule of C's. First, it needs to be clear. That means using simple language without any unnecessary difficulty. It must be complete, containing absolutely all the information the reader needs to act on it, so you don't end up trapped in one of those endless back-and-forth email chains. It should be concise, cutting out all the irrelevant fluff. It has to be correct, and that means perfect grammar, double-checked facts, correct names, and accurate dates. It must be coherent, flowing in a logical, easy-to-follow order from sentence to sentence. It should be courteous, always maintaining a respectful tone. And above all else, the whole shebang must be audience-centered.
You know, the underlying philosophy behind that checklist all comes down to one thing: empathy. As scholars Kitty Locker and Stephen Kosmarek point out, successful workplace writing is never just about dumping words onto a page just to get a task off your desk. It really requires deep, strategic empathy for how the reader is actually going to receive and interpret that text. You have to carefully consider their needs, the true purpose of your document, the style you're using, and even the visual document design itself.
Let's move into Section 3, 4 essential everyday formats. We're looking at emails, reports, messages, and notes.
All right, let's get a high-level overview of these 4 formats that pretty much dominate our daily lives. We rely on emails for fast, documented requests and sharing information, which usually requires a direct yet courteous tone.
Then we have reports used for formal analysis. These require highly structured and very objective writing. We use instant messages for quick daily updates, where the tone heavily depends on the context and your relationship with the person. And finally, we use notes for capturing ideas and reminders. These need to be highly selective and organized if they're actually going to be useful to you later on.
Let's start with emails. Be honest, have you ever opened your inbox and felt an immediate, visceral spike in stress simply because of a super vague subject line? Just look at this contrast. A subject line that just says important tells the reader absolutely nothing. It forces them to dig for the meaning. But a clear subject line like meeting rescheduled to Friday at 10 a.m. immediately communicates the purpose. What a relief, right? It respects the reader's time and drastically reduces the noise before they've even opened the message.
Now consider how we handle action requests in the body of an email. An unclear request like "send the file soon" is an absolute recipe for disaster. I mean, which file? Why? What does soon mean to you versus what it means to me? But look at the specific version. Please send the revised project report by 4 p.m. today so that it can be reviewed before tomorrow's meeting. By adding action-oriented details, a firm deadline, and the specific why, you have entirely removed the communication noise. Boom! Problem solved.
Moving on to formal reports. Experts make a fantastic argument here that technical and professional reports are not simply descriptive data dumps. They absolutely must be organized in a highly usable way to help readers make informed decisions. Whether it's a scientific lab report or a corporate financial overview, it needs clear headings, readable bullet points, and accurate analysis. A manager or researcher should be able to look at it and know exactly what action to take next without having to guess.
Next up, we have short digital messages, your texts, your Slack pings, your instant messages. Because they are so incredibly fast, they are also incredibly prone to misunderstanding. Imagine getting a text from a colleague that just says, "Done." Done with what? Did you send the invoice? Did you finish the big presentation? Are you just done for the day and going home? It leaves the receiver totally confused and genuinely exasperated. Even the quickest texts need proper context, like the attendance sheet has been updated and shared in the team folder. It takes maybe 2 extra seconds to write, but it saves 20 minutes of confusing back and forth.
And this brings us to the most personal form of written communication. I want to pose a question directly to you. Why are simple notes, the scribbles you make during a lecture, or the bullet points you jot down in a meeting so incredibly vital to our thought process? Take a second and really think about that.
The answer lies in this brilliant insight from writing scholar Charles Bazerman. He explains that taking selective, organized notes actually helps us cognitively process information. Note-taking isn't just about preserving a record for later. The physical act of selecting the main ideas, filtering out all the fluff, and organizing them on a page actively prepares our brains for future action. Weak notes just list random words, but strong notes actually organize your thinking.
We've explored the tools, so let's move into our fourth and final section, overcoming communication barriers and navigating the hazards. First, let's remind ourselves of the immense advantages we wield when we write. Written media preserves and distributes information across society. It provides a permanent record. It allows us to carefully plan our words before releasing them out into the wild. It is completely unmatched for delivering highly complex, detailed information, and it can reach incredibly wide audiences while totally overcoming physical distance. And, let's be real, most importantly in professional settings, it supports accountability. Because of writing, we always know who promised what and exactly when they promised it.
But despite all these amazing advantages, writing is incredibly vulnerable. It lacks immediate face-to-face feedback. You can't instantly see the furrowed brow or the confusion on the reader's face to quickly course-correct. It strips away all those vital emotional and nonverbal cues. It is heavily dependent on the receiver's literacy and language skills. And in today's digital age, we face the massive barrier of information overload, where vital details just get completely lost in a sea of dense, poorly formatted text.
This leads to a fascinating theory from Joseph DeVito. Communication involves both a content dimension and a relationship dimension. Guys, this is truly a secret to social success. When we lack nonverbal cues in writing, we often focus entirely on the content. But if you rush a text message and it sounds overly blunt or demanding, you might successfully deliver the content, but you will accidentally damage the relationship dimension. The reader might actually think you're angry with them, simply because you didn't take the time to craft a courteous tone.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Thinking from your reader's perspective, providing clear context, formatting for usability, and carefully managing your tone, none of this is just about being polite. It has major, highly practical consequences.
Good written communication quite literally saves precious time, drastically reduces workplace and personal confusion, and undeniably improves productivity across the board.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to challenge your daily habits. Think about the very next digital message you are about to send after watching this. Is it truly going to be understood, or is it going to be filled with noise? Take a second to apply that rule of C's, add some necessary context, and ensure your meaning is perfectly shared. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this topic. If you found this explainer helpful, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into the mechanics of how we connect. See you next time.